Hello everybody and welcome to the channel. It's Paulie, Esther here. And yesterday Dead by Daylight put out a tweet with a link to their website which had the lore for the new survivor, Élodie Rakoto. She is going to come when the next DLC drops, Chapter 18, A Binding of Kin. In the meantime, we can read about her backstory. So I'm going to take you here to that tweet. Élodie spent her life pursuing the disappearance of her parents until the entity found her first. And so when we click on that link, it takes us to the official Dead by Daylight website, and we'll just read through the lore here. Élodie Rakoto lore. I apologize if I'm butchering her last name. We don't have a pronunciation guide, so I'm doing the best I can. Élodie, I'm pretty sure, is the way it's pronounced, rhyming with melody. We can call her Elle for short once we get to know her better. Anyway, here we go. Born into a lush Parisian household, Élodie Rakoto grew up in a comfortable home miles away from the verdant island of Madagascar, her parents' birthplace. Her backpack was always heavy and usually contained no schoolwork. She carried the essentials: a few history books, some printed maps, and a compact shovel. Instead of wasting away with regurgitated facts from her classes, she explored the city to discover the stories behind each statue, neighborhood, and street sign. She collected bits and pieces of Paris, making it her own. When she was 14, her parents took her to Dyer Island for a business trip. To her grand disappointment, the island was a private site for exclusive members of the Imperiati. She was forced to attend pretentious and awkward social mixers daily. After a few weeks on the island, she met the Pariahs, like-minded teenagers who had no interest in being pawns for their parents' political chessboard. On dull, rainy nights, she would convince them to sneak out and explore the island unsupervised. One foggy evening, they stumbled upon an abandoned internment camp. Felix, one of the Pariahs, didn't want to go in, but Élodie insisted. Inside, they found a strange underground laboratory in ruins. The Pariahs grew excited, browsing through the strange apparatuses for trophies and mementos, but Élodie noticed something in the far left corner of the wall, odd scratches in the shape of a circle. She ran her fingernails against the cool concrete. The marks were deep and narrow. A warm whisper suddenly sent her mind adrift. Deep, rumbling thunder, black, glistening waves, an ashen, sanded beach. Incomplete. She was compelled to touch the ice sand and draw a circle with a line in the middle. A sharp thunderclap and lightning whipped the sky. The ground shook as sleek obsidian claws tore through the concrete floor, ripping the earth open. The building began to collapse, and Élodie spotted her mother wielding a bizarre instrument while her father told her to run. Then, complete darkness. Élodie never saw her parents again. For years, this nightmare woke her in the middle of the night, cold, sweating, shaking like a leaf. As a child, she suffered from night terrors and often resisted going to bed. To soothe her mind, her grandma would light a tea candle and tell her stories until the wick extinguished in a hot pool of liquefied wax. The perfume of the warm vanilla-scented wax would lull Élodie to sleep as she envisioned stories of legendary heroes defeating fear and foes. Élodie had forgotten the stories, but she still remembered her longing for the verdant Malagasy rainforests and colossal mountains that her grandmother described. When Élodie felt cold and numb with grief, she would light a vanilla-scented candle and summon her childhood memories of this distant, idyllic place, raising her spirits to rise above her crippling depression. 14 years later, Élodie still searched for the missing pieces of the puzzle. So that means Élodie's 28, right? No rational explanation could explain her parents' disappearance, so she had been looking elsewhere. She researched all legends that mentioned a dark force that snatched people at night without a trace. From there, she translated old tales and built a tapestry of narratives from around the world that corroborated the uncanny way her parents had vanished on Dyer Island. She also gathered artifacts made by ancient civilizations who sought to destroy or resurrect the incomprehensible and indescribable thing that took her parents. There were various names for it, differing from one language to the next: the abyss, the infinite, the whole. Her findings pushed her further into the dark field of occultism. The Pariahs were long gone. She'd alienated them with her theories, but she refused to give up on her parents. Élodie had to set out into the cold, misty evening. She turned a corner, leaving Paris' 13th arrondissement, an eccentric neighborhood with a substantial library dating from the Middle Ages. She had pressing work to do for Hazra Shah, the collector, an occult specialist who archived rare artifacts. He'd recruited her after she salvaged a rare stolen Maori statue of spidery fang-like claws she'd seen on Dyer Island. For the next 5 years, Élodie had been procuring occult relics for the collector. In exchange, he provided large sums of money, equipment, and precise information about obscure manuscripts. Just as the collector requested, she had secured the annals of a witch trial convicting a mother birthing conjoined twins in the 17th century. According to legend, an occult incantation was engraved on a set of skulls, all of which the collector possessed except one, the witch's skull. There were no traces of where the skull was now, but Élodie had found a newspaper article dating back to the same year, mentioning that most remains had been relocated to the catacombs to avoid a pandemic. Élodie was acting on a hunch. Breaking into the catacombs to retrieve a lost skull involved certain risks, but no more than the previous work she'd done for the collector. With a flashlight, she followed the ancient layout of the catacombs and spotted a collapsed wall. A few large stones blocked the way in. She grabbed her portable XRF analyzer and scanned the materials of the wall. Working for the collector had its perks. The brick mortar had been poorly mixed, showing high traces of sand. The whole thing was brittle, and the ground was moist from the damp evening air. This was her way in. The journey beneath was long and treacherous. The air was heavy and moldy. She gasped when her keychain flashlight hit an endless wall of bleached white skulls. Something cracked behind her. She spun around and collided headfirst with a baseball bat. Pain exploded in her skull, and darkness filled her view. I like whoever writes these. They do a good job. They really know how to paint a picture. When she came to, a man was carrying her over his shoulder, venturing deeper inside the catacombs. He was wearing a dark robe, the Black Veil. She managed to elude them until now. Ruthless and lethal, they went by many names. She'd figured out that they ultimately all worked for the same group, a ring of occult fanatics rumored to perform human sacrifices for what they called the Old One. She had to get out of here fast. Élodie spotted a loose skull on the wall, grabbed it, and smashed it on her assaulter's head. Stunned, the man lost his balance, and Élodie hit the ground running. As she turned a corner, she suddenly felt a sharp pain to her side. That the Black Veil there? That's pretty cool. She looked down and saw a large blade planted there. Shocked, she removed the knife, and warm blood spurted out. Her heartbeat rang in her ears as her vision blurred. She fell to her knees, summoning all her strength. She drew a circle on the ground with a shaking blood-red finger and traced a line in the middle. An opaque heaviness fell over her shoulders. A familiar scent of vanilla-spiked fruits and lychee nuts coated the air. Thin tropical rain drizzled down from leafy vines. Warmth. Madagascar. A ghostly cry erupted from the thick foliage. Élodie looked up, and the vines turned into hissing snakes. The soft canopy soil suddenly turned ashen and collapsed under her feet. She sank into something dense and cold that swallowed her like quicksand. She screamed before being smothered by the abyss, the infinite, the whole. She had found what she had been searching for. See you in the fog, the Dead by Daylight team. So, I have some thoughts about this. I think it's very interesting that Élodie is like the first person to like summon the entity. Like, I want to go just to like save her life. What she learned on Dyer Island, she used to her advantage to escape certain death. It's also interesting that she was the one on Dyer Island in the workshop who uncovered that symbol and drew the entity in the first place, which made all of their parents come, the Pariah parents of the Pariahs, come to the rescue and have them vanish into the fog. So this is the second of the Pariahs that we've heard of. If we go back and we look at Felix's lore, we can see that he says he made 4 friends who were the Pariahs. So that's 2 of them. We're missing 3 more. Dead by Daylight seems like they're pretty committed to this storyline, and you know, I'm there for it. I don't want them to lose sight of getting some licenses as well, but it seems like we've had 2 chapters in a row, Felix and the Blight, and now Élodie and the Twins. Also, it's very interesting that Élodie was getting information about the twins for the Collector. That's an interesting aspect, how she's tied in to that chapter as well. It's interesting that we've had 2 chapters in a row now featuring these Pariah characters, and they haven't gotten maps along with them. I understand that it's because they're working on the updating of the maps, so perhaps they're going to be committed to this storyline for a while they work on updating all those maps through 2021. I hope they finish it sooner rather than later. I don't want to go another 3 characters here if they're going to give us all 5 of the Pariahs. I don't want to go 3 more chapters with no new maps. One thing that I think would be interesting is if we have, let's say, 2 more Pariahs. Let's say the next Pariah is a Pariah, and then the Collector is the killer, for example, and then finally the last chapter could feature 2 Pariahs. One is the Pariah and one is the killer, a survivor and a killer who are both Pariahs. Perhaps one of the 5 Pariahs switch sides and turn to the darkness. It's an interesting storyline. I could see this turning into, like what people have said, like a Netflix series or something with these characters. How they're tying them all in is quite interesting. Our little Breakfast Club of Dead by Daylight. It actually reminds me a lot of Marvel Comics' The Runaways, where the kids find out that their parents all are like a secret organization of people who have powers. It has some parallels to that for me. But yeah, if they did 2 more chapters and wrapped up the Pariah storyline in 2021, I think that would be pretty satisfying. And having one of the Pariahs switch sides and become a killer would be an interesting dynamic too. We'll see what happens. This is all just my tinfoil hat speculation, of course. Hopefully we'll find out more about the Black Veil and such as we go further into it. But yeah, I'm digging the Felix and the Élodie chapters here for sure, with the Blight and the Twins. So the lore is really well done. It seems like with each chapter the lore gets a little bit longer and longer. It took me on day 1 of the PTB about a half an hour to read the lore for both Élodie and the Twins. So someone pointed out to me that it was like 12 days after they released Felix lore, then Felix chapter was released on all platforms. So similarly, I think we're looking towards the beginning of December when the Binding of Kin chapter will release. Okay, so that's all I have for you today. Thank you so much for listening along to my story time here. I hope you enjoyed it. It's going to be a cool chapter. Looking forward to it. Can't wait to see in what way they tweak the Twins from the public test build to full release. I feel pretty confident in saying that there will be some adjustments and it won't be released as is, but you never can tell. And remember, I lost my bet with King, so I had bet that this chapter coming up, chapter 18, was going to be a licensed chapter. He bet on original, and part of one of the conditions of our bet is that each of us had to cosplay as the killer from the next chapter, whoever lost the bet. So since it's an original chapter, I have to cosplay as the Twins on release day. So I'm getting prepared for that. I hope you'll join me when that happens. As always, thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Take care of each other in and out of the fog, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.